Minutes are under. Minutes are roll call.
Yes, the minutes are roll call.
The only thing is consent.
I mean, the minutes.
Are you ready? I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Yankton Board of City Commission. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have roll call, please, Ann.
Yes. Sarda?
Here.
Fertig?
Here.
Gross?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Knopf?
Here.
Maibaum?
Here.
Minor?
Here.
Mosier?
Here.
Mayor Hoffner?
Here.
City Manager Nelson?
Here.
City Attorney Denherter?
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll continue with our business. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Number 2 under routine business is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on June 26th.
I move the approval of the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion in regards to the minutes? Roll call, please.
Knopf?
Aye.
Maibaum?
Aye.
Minor?
Aye.
Mosier?
Aye.
Sarda?
Aye.
Fertig?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner?
Aye. Motion carried. Number 3 is the scheduled bills, and we have a supplement of that. And you want to explain the manual check register, please?
Can we go back, please, to the minutes of the special meeting of June 19th, which your motion was, or the motion was just the 22nd or 26th.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of June 19th.
Motion approved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Maibaum?
Aye.
Minor?
Aye.
Mosier?
Aye.
Sarda?
Aye.
Fertig?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Knopf?
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner?
Aye, motion carried. Now we'll continue with the scheduled bills, number 3. Ann, could you explain the manual check register omission?
Yes, I just happened to notice in the commission packet that there was an inadvertent list of checks to be approved, and the manual check register for some reason pulled a list of bills to be paid that were actually from what we call our P card, our corporate credit card list. So that was duplicated, and the manual check register was not listed. So I provided a copy to the commissioners tonight. I do have an extra copy here, and there's a copy in the back. Generally speaking, these are the routine payments we make every month for payroll types of things like health insurance, vision, things like that. Also, our VAST phone bill is approved on that, and we did have one large payment for a new articulated loader that was on that list, and for Meridian, music at the Meridian, entertainment, and things like that. Any questions on that? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that to make everyone aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
I move we pay the bills.
Second.
Move to pay the bills and seconded. Any discussion? Anybody from the audience? Roll call, please.
Minor?
Aye.
Mosier?
Aye.
Sarda?
Aye.
Fertig?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Knopf?
Aye.
Maibaum?
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner?
Aye, motion carried. We'll go on to number 4 in the routine business, city manager's report.
Honorable Mayor, members of the commission, excuse my voice. I'll try to keep it short because I'm losing it. My voice, that is. Just, we'll see how tonight goes. Maybe I'll be losing more than my voice. Just one item I want to bring forward, unless you have questions for me. In the past, we have not allowed anyone to utilize anything that is taken to our transfer station. Once something passes the gates of the transfer station, it becomes public property. It's trash, and one man's trash is another man's treasure, but it's public property, so it's not for use. We've made exceptions when there's a public use for it. So we have allowed, for example, riverboat days to utilize logs for the chainsaw sculpture because that's a public use. Everyone can come down and see the chainsaw sculpture. So we had a request from Crystal Nelson at the Territorial Museum to utilize some pallets to assist with their move. As some of you are aware, they're moving into the Mead building. So I think that's a public use. She's going to use them for a period of time to keep things up off the floor, and then she'll return them to us. But because of our partnership, I think that's a public use, and we can allow that. So I'm just looking for head nods here and a blessing that that's okay to go forward with that. I'm not going to talk anymore unless you have questions of me. Thank you.
Any questions for Manager Nelson? Anybody from the audience? Thank you. Each meeting we have, we allow a public appearance. We allow anyone that wants to be on the agenda to be on the agenda at this time. We would ask anybody from the public that would like to be on the agenda that's not part of the published, please come forward. State your name, please.
Good evening. My name's Doug Heavley, and I'm with the Yankton Rodeo Association. We've been doing PRCA rodeo and extreme bull riding events for, this would be the 29th year. We've been located over on Highway 50 on the HSE property, which has been sold now. And so this year we're able to do our event, but as of October 20th, we have to be gone off that property. And so we've been looking all over for a place to move to, but anybody that has land that's tillable, not very willing to give it up. When we set up the arena and the bleachers, that iron gets pretty heavy, so we like to be able to say that we can stay there for 5 to 10 years in one spot. We take up approximately 1 acre. Be willing to leave it set up and share it with anybody in the community. It can be used for other things besides a rodeo event. But at this point in time, we have no place to go. Yes, we could sell the arena and the buck and shoots, but boy, once it's gone, it's gone. And we hate to lose this. And so I've contacted the city manager and the city planner, and I'm hoping that somebody will feel sorry for us and give us some ground. But like I say, it can be used for many other things. Where we are now, we were able to do one event. That's all we were allowed to by the state. But I've had people contact us, and they want to do a fun day for kids. They do a ranch rodeo, a team sorting. A number of things could happen. Riverboat days, Rib Fest. A number of other agencies could use it also. But I guess bottom line is that we're looking for a place to move to October 21st.
Well, thank you, Doug. Appreciate what you do. This is quite an attraction from the area. It's a great rodeo, whether you're a bull ride or rodeo. Thank you for that. And I believe that the question is how mobile you can be. I think it's about finding a permanent home. How do we know where we can put that permanently versus how versatile are you? I mean, could you pick it up or can that be?
With a
around?
tractor and pallet forks, we could move the arena, we could move the buck and shoots. But we got 30 sets of bleachers that don't break down.
Okay. That's good to know.
And the holding pens, they're permanent also. But we sit about 2,500 people.
Any other questions for Doug? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else would like to address the commission at this time from the public? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. Number 1 on the consent agenda is to establish a public hearing for the sale of alcoholic beverages. Established July 24th as the date for a public hearing for one day, August 12th, Lewis and Clark Theater event. Get a motion, please.
So moved.
We can do the first 7 if you'd like, unless you want to separate one out, but 8 we'd probably have to do the budget, so we can do we can combine the first 7 if you like. Any questions, any argument with that?
Let's move 4 off too, please.
Take 4 off? Okay. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. The second one is to establish a public hearing for also the sale of alcoholic beverages, special event on August 25th, Lewis and Clark Theater. Number 3 is establish a public hearing also for alcoholic beverages, July 24th, for Saturday, November 4th, Lewis and Clark Theater. Number 6, a public hearing of the transfer of ownership on and off sale for July 1st through June 30th, Hillcrest Country Club. Number 6, establish a public hearing for a new retail on and off wine license from Yankton YC Library, LLC. Number 7, establish a public hearing for transfer of ownership on and off sale for a malt beverage license for July 1st to June 30th from YASS to YC Library, LLC, 401 Capital.
I move consent items 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7.
Is there a reason we want to add 9 and 10? We do 9 and 10 too, can we?
Oh, we'll separate 9. We're getting too confusing. We'll confuse the Well, a motion to approve 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Anybody from the audience? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4, peddler license application, memorandum 17-151. The approval of application for a peddler license for Southwestern Company. Go door to door selling educational books and material in the city.
Move the memorandum, or the consent.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So just Googling these people from Southwestern Company, I'm not getting a good vibe for them. For $5 and they get to go house to house, and I'm not seeing very good search results on their behalf, and it has a lot to do with angry individuals getting people showing up at their doors and asking to live there, in addition to trying to get them to purchase books. $5 and that kind of hassle in our community, I would say this is one opportunity for us to say no to Southwestern Company peddling in our community.
I'm assuming they do an extensive police search on record search, don't they, on these?
I think what the finance office does is they take a look at the, when somebody applies for the peddler's license, is they look at their driver's license and they check them with the police department. And this to make sure they have a sales tax. Those are what's required. No, we don't.
Looks like Andris Usins is from Latvia, and he's visiting the States over the summer.
Yeah, that's not uncommon to have folks from overseas doing those types of jobs for the summer months, or that in itself wouldn't raise a, question, but it's the commission's pleasure to approve or not approve.
Any other questions? Anybody from the audience? Roll call, please.
Mosher.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Fertig.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Mybom.
No.
Minor.
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner.
No. Motion carried. Number 8 under consent agenda is a consideration of memorandum 17-152 for budget workshop. We have August 8th and 9th. Is that okay with everyone? Do we have enough folks, or do you want to extend it a week?
Mayor, we have a number of dates listed that
15th and 16th.
could work,
8th
so
and 9th.
the commission could choose one night or two, whatever they still choose. I think we can get it done in one night, but it's up to the commission.
The 8th and 9th works for me. I think we get too close to Riverboat Days if we wait till the next week.
Okay, August 8th, 9th. Okay, number 9. Okay, well, all in favor say aye.
We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I will make that motion.
I can second.
I quit. Thought I was doing good, but anyway. Can I get a motion, please?
I think Johnson and then second by Sarda.
Motion and second, and any other discussion?
Is it City Hall?
Yeah, we'll have those at City Hall and 5:30 start time if that works for folks, and we won't use the 9th if we don't need both dates.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, under consent, establish public hearing for transfer of ownership and location. Can I get a motion, please?
Let's do 10-2, Jake.
What's that?
Do I have the most current agenda? There's a 9 and a 10, right?
Yes, he's just doing
Yeah.
9.
We're doing 9.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Number 9 under consent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carried. Number 10. Establishing a public hearing for July 24th for a transfer of ownership from King Buffet Mongolian Grill to King Buffet Mongolian Grill.
So moved.
Been motioned and second. Any discussion? Anybody from the audience? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're going to move on to old business. We really don't have any, so we'll go on to the new business. The new business, the first item is a bid award for cold applied plastic pavement marking installation.
I move the memorandum.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Anybody from the audience? Roll call, please.
Sarda.
Aye.
Fertig.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mosher.
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner.
Aye, motion carried. Number 2, outside agency fund request. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that with the remaining money we have in our BBB And we have, in our last meeting, or the special meeting in the 19th, we talked about trying to leave a balance for some major project down the road. I would propose tonight that even though all of the requests certainly have value and are worthy of consideration, my motion would be that for 2018, that we budget $20,000 for NFAA, $20,000 for Onward Yankton, leave Yankton Area Progressive Growth where it is, leave the Convention and Visitors Bureau where it is. Riverboat Days, the money that was budgeted last year was specifically for a building. It was not for operating, so I would budget $0 for their operating requests for this year. And Yankton Transit, I would leave where they were last year at, I believe it's $30,000. And that is my motion.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions from the commission?
Charlie, have you done the math on where that leaves us on our budgeted projections?
Yeah, that leaves us at $410,000. We have a little wiggle room in the $30,000 that we budget for special events during the year, but we also have special events that pop up during the year, so I'm leaving that alone. This will create a problem for us next year, because next year we'd be scheduled to be at about 410 without this 40. So this will take us next year under 400,000. And so I'm going, that to me is the new sort of, we don't really want to go below that. Now, things can change. Sales tax can come in higher than we've anticipated. But at this point, that is my motion.
And does your number take into account the TID?
Yes.
That we potentially have to make a payment for?
Yes. Yeah, the numbers, the budget numbers were reduced because of the potential TID payment that we have to make. We're pretty sure we're going to have to make it in 17. So that's taking $45,000 out of the triple B, because that's where the shortfall for the TID comes from. So that's one of those. I don't think we saw that one coming 3 weeks ago. But
and with that, Amy, maybe you can answer this. So 17 looks like it's going to be, that payment will have to come out in 2018, is just yet to be seen based on the tax numbers.
Yet to be seen based on the tax numbers and based on what development occurs there. There is a new project being built in the TID number 5 right now, or excuse me, in the TID, Menard's TID, I think that's number 5. Right now that's under construction, and we've had other folks talking about projects there, so that would change the, the value, the assessed value. So yeah, it can change in a year, and it would depend upon how fast construction is completed on those projects.
The one thing we've always talked about is having a $500,000 floor. Now you've moved to $400,000, and again, I just caution always doing that, because just like this TID payment that needed to be made, you have to have some funds available, because we have obligations that we have to make, and certain obligations, CVB, I know there's some discussion of what do we want to do with that long term, but it's still an obligation no matter what. There's a financial obligation there, progressive growth, transit, that we have to always take care of, because those are entities and funds that are really needed to sustain Yankton's growth. So, I guess I'd like to hear the rest of the discussion or what other commissioners think, but I'm just hesitant to get that balance down too far, because we do not, we're 400,000 to me is starting to get to where you just have very few dollars available for a project that comes along. And those projects can be an economic development project where we need to match some funds or have funds to incent employers to come in. So I just would be cautious about spending those kinds of dollars.
I think next year will be even more. I think this year has certainly been challenging enough, given the discussions that we've had as a commission, but next year will be even more challenging unless the economy turns around. Sales tax picks up.
Any other questions from the commission?
I think maybe for the public's benefit, late last week we got some tax figures back, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Amy. We got some tax figures from Yankton County where we learned that the TID will not be paying, because there hasn't been enough development. Dave, help me here. There has not been the return on the TID that we had expected. And so when that TID was created, we agreed that we would fill that gap with our BBB fund. And so that puts us on the hook for approximately $100,000 between this year and next year, the way things are looking now.
Part of the rest of the problem related to that was the reduction in the mill levy by the school system, because in a TID district, all the property tax collected goes to make the payment. And when the state did the 0.5% increase in sales tax, they reduced the school's levy. So they're now, this year, there is less money coming to the TID from property taxes. And that's created part of this problem for us.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody from the audience?
I'd just like to reiterate something that Doug said earlier tonight. Yankton County, they increased their annual contribution by 13% to Yankton Area Progressive Growth. I can't imagine supporting a motion here tonight that doesn't give them their requested increase, when Yankton County can make the numbers work. And I was at that meeting. I heard Commissioner Kettering and I heard Commissioner Woods both fight for that increase in the face of public scrutiny, asking, why are you investing in YAPG? And they kept going back to the importance of investing in economic development. Just as a heads up, I can't imagine especially supporting any motion here tonight that doesn't involve increasing what YAPG is getting. What we've heard so far are excuses for why we can't, but this is still a significant balance that we're talking about here. Perhaps we can make some more significant changes in the year or years to come, but with that in mind, there are still hundreds of thousands of dollars in this BBB fund, and we can spend it all the way down to zero if we want to, or we can leave it sit there.
Anyone else?
I guess I'd just like to mention that, you know, I agree YAPG does a great job, but I think everybody that presented tonight is very deserving of the money. The fact is, the money's not there. Any raise that we give this year, unless you want to take money away next year, will just compound year after year. Not knowing what we're doing with the taxes, with the money coming in, I agree with Charlie on this one.
Point of clarification, the money's there. The money is there. We could spend it if we wanted to spend it. So the money's there. Is it best sitting in a virtual account inside of QuickBooks, or is it best invested in the community? Literally, if we wanted to here tonight, we could invest in every single one of the entities who came here before us, including their increases. Give everybody what they're asking for. If we wanted to. The money's there.
I think one of the issues there is you prolong something that's inevitable, and that is that at some point you have nothing. You get to a point of negative spend. You're spending more than you're bringing in, and I think they call it eating the seed corn. You got to be cautious of doing that. And we have always maintained a balance so that we can do special projects. I'm as big a fan of progressive growth as anyone, and I think they are such an important arm of the city being able to leverage economic development. But really what I want to maintain, or I think the Commission's always wanted to maintain a balance on, is probably going to benefit progressive growth more than anything, because it's that sort of an economic development project that comes forward that it's too good to pass up, or we just have to leverage dollars. Those are where those funds have always been earmarked for, is that economic development. So I'd like to see their budget go up too, but when we're talking about decreasing revenues and trying not to give away more than we take in, and we are giving away more than we take in, you can only do that for a few years, and then all of a sudden you have nothing left. And that I would caution against that.
So with Yankton Transit, we don't typically take that money out of the BBB. Is that correct?
That's correct. The $30,000, I believe it's $30,000 contribution, that allocation that's given now is out of the general fund, which if the city commission would like to increase that amount, it can be directed to take it out of the general fund or the triple B. I think Yankton Transit would fall under, would warrant both. We've recommended as a staff that any additional increase be taken from the triple B just because there is a fund balance there, and we're having a hard time in our operating budget right now. But that's also the commission's pleasure.
Anyone else?
I know everyone is significantly challenged. I think transit is one of those agencies that at some point in time, our agency is going to have to say, it's not worth it. We're not doing justice to it. And how did, if the city of Yankton had to fund this, which is public transportation, if you had to fund it at $30,000, that's what, less than $15 an hour? Basically, what the city funds public transportation. That's not even an FTE. And we've got, what, 15 employees operating it? It's a significant budget. If you take that out, if that goes away, the federal dollars go away, the operation goes away. It ceases to exist. The city of Yankton, in the end, would own the building, but yet 80% of the match money, which funded it, would have to go back to the federal government, correct? So, guys, it's dire in some respects. We can't continue to rely on river cities to do that. We need to push the state, and I know Ron, as our conduit from a state perspective, he's looking at trying to figure out the best way to do it, but basically it's robbing from another community to get it to this community. That's not a guarantee. Hopefully we can get some additional funds. Where does it do? Does it go to the other business community to basically raise the funds to offset the money that you have there? It's to a point, guys, in the 17 years that I've been there, that it is getting to a point where I think we are one of the lowest cost, most efficient transit agencies in the state of South Dakota, and Ron can attest to that. If you continue doing it, like you said, Dave, at what point in time do you, when the seed money's gone, do you say, okay, we're done? And we are that close, you guys.
I want to make sure we're not talking about zero funding transit.
But zero funding, Dave, is one thing. I'd say forget it, we're done. But even the funding at the level today, same thing with the YEPG thing. If you're going to fund that, we haven't seen an increase in 10 years, Amy, 8. Dave sent me a number, I can't remember, but it's in and out, but it's pretty much been at last 15 years. I think it's been at 30,000, or reduced a little bit like that. So for that whole period of time, even at 1.75%, it's 20% increase. That's just basically what we've requested. And even then, it doesn't get you to break even.
Yeah, and I would say, personally from Yankton, looking at Yankton Transit, because you're looking from a 30,000 to a 40,000, so a $10,000 increase. And much of what you talk about tonight with leveraging, where 20%, we throw in 20% and there's $200,000 available, that's very intriguing, and I think it's something that as time goes on, we have to look at how we can do that. But as we sit today, we have to pass a budget, and we've only got so many dollars to work with. And so, that's something that I would say, again, we just have to be cautious on what we can budget for. Doesn't mean we can't look for ways to try and utilize and tap into those funds. I just don't know that we can set a budget today with those numbers.
And I would agree. I think there has to be really from a community perspective, is what value does the community of Yankton put on public transportation? And really look at where does it come from? Because if we don't start to fund it at an adequate level to basically get the match dollars to get to where you need to go, you might as well just close it today. And then all of a sudden what happens? Workforce productivity, economic development, everything that everyone else is saying is what transit does do for the community of Yankton. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else? And also be advised that if we did approve this and we did go through and approve the budget later on in the year, we have several groups come to our group on a case-by-case basis. It could be Boy Scouts, Onward, anyone with specific need. And once we see our numbers and see what they're doing and they may turn around, we can also be flexible with that money. This is not like that's set for the whole year. This commission can adjust that during the year if they so choose after this, okay?
So
anyone else?
I would just ask if there's any interest in, like on tonight's budget, we are investing almost $500,000 into downtown streetscape. We're also doing the facade program as part of this. Is there any support for $10,000 for Yankton Transit and reducing Onward Yankton to $10,000? And not that, and it's no reflection on the work they're doing. They're doing great work, and I feel like we've really reached out to be partners with them. Certainly through the streetscape process, our employees and elected officials have spent quite a bit of time in that planning process. And I just am trying to look at, one of their pillars is downtown investment. We are making significant downtown investments. And I just feel Yankton Transit is a priority.
Any other questions?
Well, he had a question. I guess I'd be open to that, given the fact that there is a large budget item going into the downtown tonight, into the streetscape. So I don't know. I think you have to amend the motion or vote, and I don't know how you do it, but I'd be interested in that too. I think the leveraging of those federal dollars is something that is, at some point, you have to address. And if we don't address it tonight, I think it has to get addressed for sure within the next 2 years, if that's what the window is, but probably sooner. And so I guess I'd be open to it.
Amy, was your preference that if we do fund Yankton Transit or give them additional dollars, it's your preference it comes out of Triple B? But you said it could be either or, right?
You can take it out of the operating fund. I just, we're at a point where we're having a hard time finding where in operating that comes from too. But if that's the commission's pleasure, we can take any of these out of general fund. I don't recommend it, but you can take any of these out of the general fund. We think it can fall under the breadth of what the Triple B expenditure could be used for. I didn't hear the presentation that was actually at another meeting, but my understanding from my discussion with Onward Yankton earlier this week was that they have some capital projects identified in the Meridian District other than the projects that we have planned. And maybe I didn't make that clarification in our budget meeting, but those are in addition to projects that we're looking at doing. So these are things like the archway over the Meridian District and some district lighting and things of that nature. So just to bear that in mind.
Anyone else?
Can we have the motion clarified before we vote if we're going to?
Can you read back the motion, please?
Yes. The motion was by Gross and seconded by Sarda to, with the remaining money in the BBB fund, to propose that in 2018 the budget as follows: for the NFAA $20,000, for Onward Yankton $20,000, for YAPG the same as 2017, the CVB the same as 2017, Yankton Riverboat Days 0 funds, and Yankton Transit the same as 2017, which is $30,000.
I just want to make one more clarification. What we're voting on tonight is just a recommendation to what we're putting into the budget. We're not actually approving these amounts as far as the budget goes. That comes at a later date.
I would like to make a motion that we amend. I'm allowed to do that?
Yep.
Oh, we,
No, you can amend. Go ahead.
that we amend the motion to allocate $10,000 to Yankton Transit, 10,000 to Onward Yankton.
Is there a second to the amendment?
So that includes all the other funding that was discussed. I'll second that to get to a vote.
So you're reducing Onward to 10, as opposed to taking 10 out of BBB.
Discussion in regards to the amendment. Anybody from the audience? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment. Roll call, please.
Fertig.
Pass.
Gross.
Nay.
Johnson.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Maibaum.
No.
Minor.
Aye.
Mosier. Mosier?
No.
Sarda.
Aye.
You were a no.
No, I passed. We tied.
Well, you passed. Well, and then Mayor Hoffner.
No.
So now we're tied. So we do have a tie.
So you come back to me. I just passed. You come back to me.
Fertig.
No.
Okay, motion failed. Now we'll move on to the main motion.
Unless there's other amendments. I would amend the motion to increase YAPG from 212,468 to their asked request of 240.
The motion is to amend the main motion to increase YAPG from 212 to 240. Is there a second to the amendment? Okay, motion dies for lack of second. Now back to the main motion. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Gross.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Maibaum.
No.
Minor.
Aye.
Mosier.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Fertig.
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner.
Aye. Motion carried. Number 2 under new business is a bid award for the Second Street Pedestrian Calmer Project, Memorandum 17-150. What is your pleasure?
I will move the memorandum.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, it came in quite a bit higher than the engineer's estimate. What did we have budgeted for this amount? I don't know if that was in there. And we only received one bid, so just looking.
Correct. There was one bid, and I believe it's 650,000 was budgeted for that project.
We're still under our budgeted amount.
Yes.
I'm in a different memorandum. I've got 490. Do I have the old? Or am I in the wrong?
17-150.
Yeah, I'm showing the bid of 490 with an estimate of 411, but I maybe have the old agenda on.
That's the engineer's estimate. The 411
Engineer's.
is just the estimate. There was 650 in the budget.
Okay, but what's the and I'm looking for the 650 in the, where's the 650 for? 650,000.
That's how much was in the,
That was the number in the budget that we thought, but when we had the engineers spec
Okay,
it.
all right,
That was in the 2017 budget.
okay, all right, now I understand.
Question, does that include moving up Walnut Street? Or is that
This
just
is all-
650 is all Second Street?
This is all Second Street for Cedar, Capitol, and Douglas. Not Walnut. Walnut we'll do that with the second.
Maybe, Adam, you
and
could
fourth.
back up a little, explain this project for the folks that are confused.
So along Second Street at the intersections of Cedar, Walnut,
By the plaza. There.
by the plaza. There's been painted pedestrian calmers, I guess, on each intersection on each corner. Similar to the calmers, the bump outs, if you will, on 3rd Street, the elephant ears. They're called traffic calmers, is what they're technically called. What we would be doing is installing traffic calmers along 2nd Street.
And Adam, can you explain, if the engineer's estimate is $411,000, why this is $80,000 more than what, I mean, I get that we had $650 in the budget, but that's quite a bit of difference.
There's a couple of reasons. Due to the late in the year bidding, it's kind of the late in the year to be bidding project that needs to be completed this year yet, as well as it's not your typical street project. So there's a lot of, there's smaller individual projects basically, and they're going to require a lot more handwork with the radiuses that go into the curb, the smaller concrete pours that can be done at one time with the sidewalk and everything. So it's not your typical project. It was a tougher project to estimate, I'll tell you, yeah.
Any more questions?
For Amy, when you look at engineering estimate, does that ever adjust your budget so that you rely on those numbers, or do you typically, when you do your budget, stick with what you have put, the 650?
Well, we haven't had a traffic calmer project like this since I've been budgeting. But I think that was based on previous budgets, but those were larger projects. So materials makes a big difference. But if we were to do another calmer project, I probably wouldn't estimate as high in the budgeting in the capital improvement plan.
I just want to know if the engineering estimate causes you to make adjustments to your budget so that now you're looking at shortfall somewhere else, or you're still going to be fine.
We'll be okay. That's second penny. So.
Anyone else from the audience have any questions in regards to the?
Haven't we had other projects come in under budget so far this year? I mean, it's just my memory says that we've had several that came in under what we.
Yes, we've had some equipment and construction projects under, and we try to be generous in estimating when we do budgeting, just to make sure that this is a little more than generous, but make sure we're going to be okay on that.
Anyone else?
Just for the sake of the public, to help them understand the project maybe a little more. For quite a few years, you've probably seen the painted lines on 2nd Street, because the intention for quite a while has been to build out the curbs and make it more pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly, really close the space between 3rd Street and the riverfront. And we've seen some good business development down in that last block before the river, and I think we're going to see some more this next year. And through conversations we've had with Onward Yankton and their downtown planning project that we've been a part of, we really think that this is something that will help bring the community forward, continue to close that gap to the river, and hopefully create a nice public space between the bridge and the businesses down there and the park.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Johnson.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mosier.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Fertig.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Mayor Hoffman.
Aye. Motion carried. We'll move on to number 4. Planning Commission. I think Dave is up on. You guys want to hear what Dave says before we take action?
Number 4 is a consideration of tax incremental district number 8. It was a tax increment district plan that was reviewed by the Planning Commission and recommended for approval. This is phase 2 of Westbrook Estates and is similarly packaged to how phase 1 was. The key things to remember about phase 1 that also apply here are it's a developer-driven project. The city doesn't incur any debt associated with the improvements that the developer will benefit from. One little change from this that is, in my opinion, and the Planning Commission discussed it, creates kind of a win-win situation, is there's a segment of the district that, through the attached agreement, the developer and staff thus far, and up for consideration for you, have negotiated all of the increment that's created from the north 20 lots in this development would go to the city and stay with the city specifically for Collector Street improvements in 23rd Street. Those are the types of things that we struggle with adjacent to developments like this, is because they're more expensive projects than a standard local street section, and there might be property across the street that isn't as prime or ripe for development as this may be. This development, and with the agreement from the developer, I guess, has the ability to cover the city's cost over the next few years for improvements to 23rd Street. So that's kind of a win-win situation that's unique to this tax increment district, something we haven't really seen or done before. Total eligible project costs would be in the $3.5 million range. The increment, based on projections, which were pretty, we have pretty solid projections at this point because of the history from phase 1, would be that the tax increment district would be able to sunset several years prior to the 20-year mandated sunset with all of the debt retired that the developer would have involved. Again, the city doesn't have any debt. The saving clause that the city has in this is that if there is debt that the developer has when the tax increment district sunsets, that's the developer's loss and not the city's, so the developer would carry that. So unlike the tax increment district that we were talking about before, where the city was primarily the developer, we have a private developer doing this one that's basically taking all the risk. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions? Anybody would like to make a motion?
Random.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion?
I'd just like to thank Yankton Area Progressive Growth and Kelly Nielsen for their work on starting this second phase, and hopefully it's as successful as the first.
Anybody from the audience have any questions? Roll call, please.
Knopf.
Aye.
Maibau.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mosier.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Fertig.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner.
Nay. Motion carried. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel and contractual matters.
One more memo.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot Francis. Sorry, Francis. We finally get to you and I go right by. Number 5, I'm sorry. YRA requests for funding 17-143.
Move the memorandum.
Mayor Hoffner, we should probably have a motion to bring it off, to remove it from the table, because it was tabled.
Yeah, let's, since we tabled this last meeting, I would ask for a motion to move from the table back on the,
So moved.
Second.
motion and second. We need a roll call now. Roll call, please, on the table. Bring it back.
Maibau.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mosier.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Fertig.
Aye.
Gross. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Knopf.
Aye.
Mayor Hoffner.
Aye. Motion carried. Now, anybody have a motion to memorandum 17-143, or do you want to hear some more comments?
I'll move the memorandum.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So I guess before there was some discussion of whether this is a city event or a airport event. What do we know about that?
I'll defer to Mr. Sarah on that. If you'd like to speak with that, we're certainly happy to coordinate it if the commission wishes and if that's what would be beneficial to the Airport Association. In the past, they've been, put together a successful event, and if this is in combination with their pancake breakfast, there isn't, a lot new that probably needs to be done. I think the funding was to be utilized to expand the static displays. Yeah, I think that's why they want you here.
We have the communication, we lose some, and we gain some information, and it's not always correct. So, what I'm going to do is I'll start from the beginning.
State your name, Francis, for
Pardon?
the viewing audience. There's thousands of people watching right now.
Where am I looking at? I don't care. I can talk any place. When we were aware of the 75th anniversary of the airport, was about a year ago, and so the suggestion was that the Yankton Regional Aviation Association do something, participate, have some type of an event. So we looked at options and things we could do and when we could do it and so forth. And like I told Amy before, wanting is always better than having. And so as we looked at all these things, it came to the conclusion that the Yankton Aviation Association really didn't have the staff or the organization to do much more than what we're doing with the pancake breakfast. Partly because of the age of a lot of our members, because of, even though we have 100 members in force, about 30% of them are not a part of this community. They support airports in other areas, but they belong to our organization. So, and a number of things that a lot of these people said, well, we got family events going on, so this waters down our strengths quite a bit. But we still entertain what are some of the possibilities to do for such an event as a 75th anniversary. And so during that time, we were still entertaining certain airplanes that could be brought in, which is a big attention getting and brings additional people to the area. That's in lieu or in part of our purpose of our organization is also support the airport as well as other extraneous aircraft and their aviation activity. So the group felt we were doing that with the pancake breakfast, which we've done for some 20 some years. And then a motion was made that felt that the event was not a Yankton or a regional aviation event. It had to be a city or an airport event. That it was not necessarily a part of us. We were not an auxiliary organization of the airport, and so that the city should take ownership of the event. And with that, we offered all the information that we'd gathered, planning information from the AOPA for open houses, some of the airport planes that were available, and the cost of some of those. And along with that, then, we had been given $6,500 from First National Bank for a specific aircraft, no more, no less, to be spent with a specific venture to bring an aircraft in for that event. And I talked to Jeff today, and he said if the YRA is not going to use that, then it could be used as a city event if the city was going to take on the anniversary event. And in addition to that, then, money-wise, we have offered up to $5,000 to match any funds, because we didn't want to be too short, match any funds that the city may want to use with their planning. So as we're sitting here, standing here right now, we're not planning the organization for the aviation history event, other than we're going to have the pancake breakfast on that same weekend, and if the city elects to pick up something as far as some organization other than a decree and so forth, we will have to ask for volunteers from our staff that's available to help with bringing in additional aviation events. Now, some people think that don't realize everything that has to go with an airplane coming in. We've got to talk about fuel, oil, automobiles, and motel, hotel, and sometimes even food. So there's a lot of things that have to be involved in their organization and planning and so forth. One of the reasons that we started a year early also is that some of these some of these aircraft that are available also participate in air shows throughout the country. And consequently, they start their planning a year and a half or a year, that's about the end of it, about a year in advance. So that's why we're in that situation now. We don't encourage the city to do anything, and we don't discourage the city to do anything. I hope I explained where we're sitting.
Yeah.
So if you got some questions.
So Francis, thank you. It's my understanding, if I'm correct, that this money, if we give, whatever we give, is basically a match, or the city, the city would be a match to whatever, more of a show we want, or more of a display aircraft, more of, it's not going to benefit the YRA in any way. It just benefits.
No.
Okay.
It's not a money-making proposition for anybody.
So if the city approved X amount of dollars, just matched up to 5,000.
If the city would pick up a plan and say, we're going to have a 75th anniversary event at the airport, and you wanted to spend $2,000, we'd match that $2,000, so we'd have $4,000. That's nothing to do with the $6,500 at First National. That's only specifically for an aircraft. And so we can't milk into any of that money that the First National Bank is giving. I talked to Jeff this morning, and he says specifically for that airplane. And if we don't need it, we're fine. He'll use it later on. But so that's kind of the story. So what I'm asking, what we've been asking from the beginning, is what does the city want to do? Do they want to have an anniversary event, and we'll participate and support it? I guess that's my story. Is there any other questions?
Francis, I just want you to further qualify something, though. You said this isn't a moneymaker, but tell us who comes to this event, where do they come from, and what's your guess as to what they actually do when they're here?
You mean the participants?
Yes.
Well, when we have a pancake breakfast, we have a fly-in. Weather is good, we could have from 8, 10, 15 different airports, probably 30 aircraft. They come in, eat their pancakes, and leave. That's what they do. When we have a pancake breakfast, if we have an airplane here, like when we had the Tri-Motor or the B-25, people come in, it adds to the pancake breakfast that we have. They come watch the airplane, and if it's a flying event, why they stick around and watch the airplane take off and leave and so forth. If it's a donation event, now we have in the wings, the Commemorative Air Force in Sioux Falls have a L-19, which is a World War II spotter aircraft. And they have offered to bring that down, and they will fly, give people rides for a $90 donation in that aircraft. And that will help fund their organization. So that's what people do when they come here. They eat and watch airplanes and drink coffee, so forth. So, did that answer your question? I mean,
yeah.
There's very few. It's not like an air show where people are going to come in, stay overnight, be in the motel, all this type of thing. It's not that kind of event. So it's not an air show event. That's a whole different situation.
Anybody else have any questions?
Is it clear where we stand now? Okay.
You might want to back up on our motion, and because we need to clarify whether or not we're going to approve the whole amount or up to 5 on a certain amount, or deny or table.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion then.
Okay.
I think someone has to withdraw a second, right?
Second? My fault. Do you want to withdraw your second?
No.
Now I've got a question before we vote. Has Brittany looked at this at all? Or are you waiting for commission direction on this?
Yeah, we've looked at it, and she's sat down with Francis and a few others from the airport, from the YRA group, and to do the event, we would certainly need their input, because we have, Mike at the airport and Dave Mingo, but we don't have as much aviation expertise as that group does. So we would need their help, and I think they'd be helpful. They would be willing to help us put together, choosing displays, etc. To me, it makes sense to take part in that event during that pancake breakfast when they already have hundreds of people out there, to ensure we maximize the amount of folks coming out there. That's what makes sense to me. But yeah, so we're it's just towards the end of September typically. I think is that third third weekend in September, so kind of the summertime events have kind of winded down a little bit, so.
Yeah, I guess the reason I asked the question is, I'm just wondering, is this premature, or is this something that should be done internally and brought to the city at a future date after Brittany sits down, looks at, yeah, we want to do this, this is what we think is a reasonable budget, whether she has funds available in her budget now, or whether we need to tap into funds?
I don't have the answers to that, but I do know she's looked at it and she's willing to put it on. I think Mr. Sayre has something else to add to.
Events like this, there's two ways that they're approached. One, the people, the principals will come up with some kind of grandiose program, and all of a sudden, how are we going to get the money? And then they go around and scavenging money up wherever they can do it. I don't like that. And my suggestion when I talked to, originally, I said, let's set a budget. We're going to spend $3,000, $5,000, whatever, and there's some parameters that we can work inside of that. And that's what I would like to do, because right now we say, okay, city's going to match 4,000, YRA match 4,000, and then we've got people that want to spend that much. Maybe that isn't what we want to do in a plan. So I would like to see some, I mean, that's my side of it. And from the YRA, as far as our contribution, we want to see, I guess, some kind of a limitation as far as expenditures, much like you do with other budgets in the city. So that I think some planning has to be done before decisions really made on costs and so forth. So,
and that was going to be my suggestion, is that we probably need a budget set to figure out. I mean, it seems like they've got some great ideas, and I think some great activities that maybe people would want to participate in, but it seems a little up in the air right now on what they need and right, or what's needed to make this a good event. So I think, I agree. I think this is something that Brittany could sit down and maybe put some pen to the paper and figure out what we're looking at as far as what the needs or the wants being done during that event.
Well,
maybe also what he was saying, if the commission is if they want to participate in the city, the 75th anniversary of the city's airport, the YRA is only going to match up to 5,000. So basically from the city, if this is something the city feels they want to do, how many dollars would they give Tiffany? I mean, the planning is a part of it, because if you want to line up any of these things, or Tiffany says, that's a good idea, let's bring them in, you can't do that 10 days or 30 days before they have to be planned. That's all.
I guess I'm looking at, so we just turned down a bunch of people requesting funds already tonight. I would, and all we're doing is we're going to kick it down the road a little bit more, asking for more information. We don't have the money to give, and I agree it's a big event. The pancake breakfast will still go on, and it serves a lot in the community. It's a big event out there. But to do extra right now, I know it's the 75th anniversary. We like to celebrate everything, but if we don't have the funds, I don't know that we even really need to do any more research on it. And if you have the city do the planning, we're paying for that. And if we're going to be coordinating and running it, it's on the weekend, we're paying for someone overtime for that. So we're still paying more money that we don't have.
I move the question.
All right. You want to read back the motion?
As I understand it, Knopf motioned and Maibaum seconded that they approve the request of $5,000 allocation. Well, that was what was listed.
Oh, let's kick it in here.
Do you want to confirm, Dave, what your motion was?
Memorandum, and the way I read the memorandum is that they're requesting a $5,000 allocation.
Okay.
So if that's not what they want, then vote accordingly.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Minor.
No.
Mosier.
No.
Sarda.
No.
Ferdig.
No.
Gross.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Knopf.
No.
Maibaum.
No.
Mayor Hoffman.
Abstain. Motion failed. Now, motion to adjourn. requested for executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I think it's just my perception, that's everybody else, but.
Oof, that was a big one.